The Trump administration just made headlines again by imposing new tariffs. This time, a hefty 25% tariff on imported automobiles and auto parts. Now, if you're in the market for a new car or just watching your investments, you definitely felt this decision rippling through the economy. But before anyone panics, it's important to understand what's really happening here. Is this just another trade war, or is Trump employing his classic negotiating strategies? Now here's the deal. These 25% tariffs specifically target vehicles and components imported from foreign countries, including Germany, Japan, Mexico, South Korea, and all the other ones. This means that any major brand like BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Toyota, Honda, Hyundai, they're all directly impacted. Ferrari has already announced plans to hike prices by 10% starting on April 2nd. So this is really going to affect the middle class here when they're looking at their Ferrari 296s and their SF90s. But if they're purchased before the date, then the prices will remain unaffected. And BMW is scrambling to protect consumers from immediate price jumps. They announced that they would extend price protection for its 3 Series models that are built in Mexico through May of 2025. However, beginning May 1st, the MSRP for BMW's popular 2 Series Coupe and the performance-focused M2 models will rise by at least 4%. For consumers, the impact is pretty straightforward but significant. Car prices are expected to jump by thousands of dollars overnight. A vehicle previously priced at $40,000 could suddenly cost $45,000 or $50,000 or more, depending on how manufacturers absorb these new costs and how much they affect everything. And it's not just luxury vehicles feeling the pinch. Mid-range and economy cars will also become significantly more expensive, adding pressure to the already stretched household budgets. Naturally, markets responded negatively. On the announcement, the Dow Jones Industrial Average plummeted over 700 points. The S&P 500 and the NASDAQ, they saw sharp declines as investors worried about spiraling inflation and potential disruption to global supply chains. Although this doesn't really cause inflation because wages aren't going up, so you kind of have to take money from somewhere else to pay for this, but that's a different story. Wall Street detests uncertainty, and a sudden, sizable tariff introduces plenty of it. Economists have raised immediate concerns about broader economic implications. Inflation, already stubbornly high, showed another spike in February based on the new PCE Personal Consumer Expenditures Index. Higher car prices mean higher consumer spending on durable goods, further fueling inflationary pressures and complicating the Fed's battle against rising prices. Or more realistically, people will just have to cut back in other areas to pay for these hikes. Despite all these challenges, the Trump administration argues that this move is fundamentally strategic. Trump's style has always been a bit confrontational, a bull in a china shop. It hit hard initially, create leverage, and then negotiate from a position of strength. Remember the trade war back in China in 2018? It began with tariffs, tension, market turmoil, but it eventually concluded with a negotiated trade deal that Trump touted as a significant win for the American workers. This new round of auto tariffs appears to follow that same playbook. And shortly after announcing the tariffs, Trump himself described the measure as temporary, signaling clarity that the tariffs are intended as leverage rather than a permanent economic shift. Indeed, he's already begun preliminary discussions with leaders, including notably very good call with Canada's central bank chief, indicating a willingness and even eagerness to strike a new trade agreement. Trump's ultimate goal here is clear. He wants to bring auto manufacturing back to American soil. He argues that for decades, trade deals have disadvantaged American manufacturers, leading to plant closures and job losses across the Midwest, states like Michigan, Ohio, and even Pennsylvania. These tariffs aren't merely punitive. They're designed to incentivize companies like BMW, Toyota, and Honda to expand their U.S. operations or start new ones, creating domestic jobs and bolstering the American manufacturing sector. And there's a precedence for Trump's optimism. Back during his previous presidency, companies responded to similar pressure by opening plants in the U.S., offering billions of dollars in investment, and citing tariffs and trade uncertainty as motivating factors. Trump believes that by increasing the cost of imports, he's effectively nudging manufacturers to invest more heavily in American workers, something that resonates strongly with much of his voter base. However, the strategy isn't without significant risks. Countries like Germany, Japan, and South Korea might respond by imposing tariffs on American exports, triggering a tit-for-tat cycle that could escalate into a broader conflict and all-out trade wars. Such retaliation could harm other sectors of the economy, notably agriculture, technology, which rely heavily on international markets. Moreover, global supply chains are intricate and delicately balanced. Disruptions don't just mean higher costs, they also mean delays, shortages, and uncertainty for businesses, both large and small. Companies may reconsider long-term investments if the US appears overly protectionist, potentially weakening rather than strengthening the economy in the long run. And it wouldn't happen overnight. You can't just build all these factories overnight, so there's a lot of pain that could come in the meantime. So how long will these tariffs actually last? Trump's negotiating history strongly suggests that they're temporary, just as he leveraged previous tariffs into a deal with China. And he's likely counting on achieving the same new trade agreements quickly, removing the tariffs once concessions are secured. This would allow him to claim victory without having long-term economic damage. Meanwhile, US dealerships are bracing for disruptions. Many fear that tariffs could lead to layoffs and slowdowns in car sales, especially as consumers delay purchases in hopes that tariffs will soon be removed. Dealership owners worry that this uncertainty could damage their businesses and their communities, particularly in areas that are already struggling economically. The tariff situation also complicates things for automakers with global operations. Many rely on tightly interconnected supply chains that, chain across multiple national boundaries. Changing these overnight due to tariffs isn't just expensive, it's logistically challenging or outright impossible, creating the potential for major disruptions and quality control issues. Then there's another dimension of this debate: national security. The administration argues that a strong domestic auto industry is crucial to U.S. national security, ensuring independence from foreign supply chains during, international conflicts and crisis. And this blind spot was made very clear during the pandemic, when supply chains came to an absolute halt and you couldn't get anything in your grocery. You couldn't even get toilet paper at the store. We're so dependent on all of these other countries in this global supply chain that we just don't really make anything anymore in the US. And so that does pose a risk if, there were to be another supply chain issue that maybe is even bigger. Strengthening domestic production capabilities theoretically reduces these vulnerabilities and improves the national resilience. Additionally, environmental implications can't be ignored. The tariffs might inadvertently boost EV sales and production in the US, as automakers might focus their investments on emerging technologies and green energy. This shift could help the US lead in the growing global market for EVs, creating sustainable jobs and potentially reducing emissions. Tesla has the most made-in-America vehicles that there are. Ultimately, Trump's new tariffs are bold, high-risk move reflecting his distinct style. Hard-nosed negotiations designed to secure better deals for America. Whether the strategy succeeds or backfires horrendously largely depends on how quickly and effectively he can negotiate the next step and try to get some deals worked out. Until then, expect some crazy volatility in markets, anxiety among consumers, and plenty of political maneuvers and turmoil as Trump works to turn the short-term pain into longer-term gain. The timing on these is also crazy because much of the world is either in recession or in denial about being in recession or headed into recession and blaming supply chain shortages and whatever excuses they have. So this adds another layer of complexity, making the tariffs potentially even more impactful than similar measures in the past. Many businesses are already dealing with tight margins and are ill-prepared for sudden, significant cost increases. Public reaction has also been intense and polarizing. While some Americans strongly support Trump's approach, believing it's necessary to protect jobs and bolster domestic industries, others express deep frustration and fear over increased consumer prices. The automotive industry is a significant part of the American identity, and these tariffs directly impact everyday life for millions of people who rely on affordable transportation and jobs. Another consideration is how these tariffs affect smaller, less visible companies involved in the automotive supply chain, second and third-party distributors. Many small businesses supply critical components to larger auto manufacturers, and disruptions at the top of the chain inevitably trickle down, potentially causing significant financial strain or even closures. The economic health of these smaller enterprises is critical, especially in regions heavily dependent on automotive manufacturing. These might also affect foreign direct investment in the United States. While the tariffs aim to encourage automakers to build plants domestically, the initial shock and uncertainty could deter future investments in other sectors. Hopefully all of this gets sorted out very quickly and we can drop these tariffs, because in the long term, they're probably not the best move, but it could be great for the American consumers and manufacturers. Let me know down in the comments below. Do you think the tariffs are a good idea or a bad idea? And thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.